Mike Rann will be allowed to set his own departure date as Premier. His replacement, Weatherill, says he won't challenge Mr Rann and will wait for the Premier to return from India to outline his retirement plans. Factional foes are falling behind the anointed successor, but the former Deputy Premier Kevin Foley isn't ruling out his own retirement. State political reporter Nick Harmson.
Mike Rann's political bell is tolling, but his cabinet colleagues don't know when it will stop.
It's business as usual.
The leader-in-waiting is happy to wait, while the Premier meditates on his position on a week-long trip to India.
No, there's no question of a challenge. There's an agreed transition. Mr Rann will come back and make a further statement about his future.
Mr Rann has staved off political execution and will set his own departure date after settling his legacy by negotiating the Olympic Dam mine expansion.
Mike Rann's fallen on his sword. The problem is it's one of those plastic retractable swords.
What we're seeing at the moment is a recipe for chaos, to have a situation where for an unknown number of months we've got a dead duck Premier.
At the moment there's also an acting Premier. John Rao is steering the ship while Mike Rann is overseas, but his permanent promotion was scuttled by his right faction colleagues.
I think everybody in the party's come to the conclusion that John Rao wasn't as good a candidate as Jay Weatherill.
There is a consensus position which has been arrived at amongst members of the Labor Party, and I support that consensus.
Mike Rann isn't doing interviews, but he is taking calls.
I spoke last night with the Premier, who's very chipper.
Just not from the man he says he wants to mentor.
You've tried calling his mobile phone?
Of course.
How many times?
Well, I've tried to get in contact.
The Premier's not the only one steering clear of the consensus candidate.
Do you expect to hold on to your cabinet spot under Jay Weatherill?
He's just there, Minister.
Right faction figures like Tom Koutsantonis and Kevin Foley have long rivalled the left leader. Some suspect his ascension will prompt Mr Foley to leave politics.
I'm a shy, retiring type now with the media.
Retiring in more than the sense you mean it?
No, I'm just not going to give you any comment, Nick.
If Mr Rann's long-serving former deputy does decide to follow him into retirement, the party could be faced with the prospect of twin by-elections. Mr Rann's seat would most likely be safe for Labor, but Mr Foley's would be under threat. Last year, Jay Weatherill challenged Kevin Foley for his job, a move which prompted fellow Minister Patrick Conlon to quit the left faction.
If Jay Weatherill is the leader of the Labor Party, he will have my unqualified support.
The question is not if he's leader, but when. Nick Harmson, ABC News, Adelaide.